Dune is a 2021 movie based off a book by the same name that has multiple other adaptations, including a weird 80s movie and a board game, apparently. It bears no resemblance to Star Wars whatsoever. Spoilers for the movie ahead. This story takes place 10,000 years in the future, where humanity has advanced so far that we're still stabbing people over drugs. Yeah, the movie is basically space. London. Anyway, Paul Atreides is your normal cute guy cast as a prince in a drama movie. He's heir to the throne after his dad, the Duke of Atreides. Also, his mom is a space witch, possibly from Dathomir, who teaches him to use the Force. I mean the voice. Let's be honest, it's basically a Jedi mind trick. You talk to them in a certain way, and people do what you tell them without thinking. Anyway, did I mention that Paul keeps having dreams where Zendaya looks over her shoulder at him seductively? Yeah, that happens, and it freaks out the other space witches who are mad at Paul for existing. Don't worry, they'll be back in a bit. Anyway, the Emperor of the entire known galaxy sends some dudes in a giant yo-yo to House Atreides and tells them to go take over the spice mines of Arrakis. Also, yeah, for some reason spice just means drug in space, I don't know. Spice is literally the most valuable thing in the galaxy, not because it makes you trip out and have visions while your eyes turn blue, but because it makes space travel possible. You see, the captains of space vessels need to use spices to navigate. I honestly don't know how this part works. I guess they just snort it all and say, yeah, man, that way, man, the sight is telling me where to go, man. Another thing to mention is that the spicy planet used to be under control of House Harkonnen, a bunch of pale, bald dudes who are led by a giant cyborg slug man. They honestly remind me a bit of Voldemort. Controlling the spice made them super rich, but Emperor Palpatine kicked them out when he found out that they were killing all the Sand People. Oh yeah, the Sand People. So basically the native people on Tatooine are called the Fremen, and they all have these blue eyes from inhaling spice 24/7. They have still suits which recycle all the moisture that their body loses. Basically, they drink their own sweat, mucus, and urine, all because, it's the desert. Its water's hard to come by. So anyway, back to House Atreides, and Poe Dameron accepts the Emperor's wish to go to Sandworld, and must now resume the spice operation, because the spice must flow. While the rest of House Atreides is getting ready to leave, Duncan, of the House Donuts, goes on a special mission to get to know the Fremen. You see, the Duke wants to be friendly with the Fremen and prove that he's a nice guy, so he sends Aquaman to go meet them. Right as he's about to leave, Paul meets up with his best friend Duncan and tells him that he had a dream and he knows that Duncan is going to die. Arthur tells him that he shouldn't worry about the dreams, since they're never actually foreshadowing in movies like these. He also makes fun of Paul for having no muscles, before refusing to elaborate further and leaving. Paul then decides to go practice knife fighting with Thanos, which is pretty cool because they have these full-body shield things, which protect you from everything but knives. Paul then has another dream about MJ, but his mom wakes him up. The head of the Space Witches shows up and challenges Paul to see if he has cool witch powers like his mom. She literally tortures him, but Paul proves that men can be just as good at being a space witch as a woman can. Basically, only women can be space witches, but Paul has a high midichlorian count or something, and that means he has special wish powers. They think he might be the chosen one, but they don't elaborate much further on this. Anyway, we finally arrive on Arrakis, and we find out that the harvesting spice thing is super difficult. Duncan comes back after meeting the Tusken Raiders, and now they're best friends. He introduces the leader of the Fremen to Moon Knight, and they all spit on the floor. They now have an alliance or something, but they get distracted by giant sandworms. Stephen Grant saves all the workers of a broken spice harvester, but is unable to save like $1 bazillion of spice. This pisses off the Emperor, so he decides to go back to his original plan and have House Harkonnen take over again. They remember that they live in the future, and they start using 1,000,000 bombs to blow up House Atreides. The doctor guy I forgot to mention betrays Mark Spector and leaves him to the dudes of House Harkonnen. Drax and the Polka Dot Man strip him of all his clothing and bring him before Jabba the Hutt, who eats dinner while a naked Oscar Isaac lays limp across the table from him. Anyway, now Paul and his mom are the only ones to escape, because Paul learns how to use the Force just enough to kill their captors. They wander around in the desert for a bit before meeting up with Duncan, who dies exactly like Paul told him earlier. After some more running, they find the Sand People. They accept Paul and his mom, but one dude is angry for some reason and fights Paul. The main character obviously wins the fight, and the Fremen declare Paul to be Space Neo. He finally meets up with the girl from Euphoria, but they don't do much together. The movie is approaching the 3-hour mark, so they just decide to cut it here and finish the rest later. That's it, that's the whole movie.